Hello, this is Simon Jones from Antiques for Everyone. Today I brought along a piece of Doulton art pottery. The Doulton pottery is one that I've always been interested in, and it's a fascinating pottery. Up to the 1860s, Doulton was very much an industrial firm, making things like pipes and toilets and very industrial type of items. And in the early 1870s, they set up an art pottery studio at Lambeth in London and took local artists from the Lambeth School of Art to work at their factory and start creating art pottery that they could sell. There are a variety of potters who became very famous that came from that factory, including George Tinworth and Markmarshall and many others. But I brought one item today, which is by a lady called Hannah Barlow, who is one of the best known from that period. Hannah was the first female potter to work at the factory, and she also had a sister called Florence who also worked at Doulton, and a couple of other siblings who had minor roles at the pottery as well. But Hannah and Florence are particularly well known. This is a vase by Hannah, which I've got in front of me. She specialised in things like horses and other animals, and Florence would stick to birds and flowers. So they had a very sort of mutual agreement. They would stick to certain areas that they would produce. But Hannah developed this amazing technique, this sort of sgraffito technique, where you would scratch the design into wet clay and make animal designs. So in this case, she has produced this amazing vase in the probably 1870s, 1880s, although this one isn't dated, so I can't be that precise. And in this case, she has etched in clay various stags and deer within a landscape. Now, to do that into wet clay is an amazing process, and she really was a very clever artist. So this would have been done, as I say, in the wet clay and then fired at a later date. If we look underneath, we have some monogram marks, including Hannah's HB monogram. There's another potter's mark on there as well, and that would have often, when major potters were working at the factory, they would have an assistant who would do additional work on the piece that they were producing. So you often get a couple of potter's marks to the base, sometimes a serial number or model number as well, so a variety of different marks. I always think it's amazing that Doulton went from what was essentially a industrial factory to producing these amazing art pottery vases in the late 19th century. And if we think about Royal Doulton now, it is collected all around the world, items made through the 20th century, a whole variety of things, even up to the modern day with Royal Doulton ladies that they produced. So they produced a huge variety of things. Hannah Barlow's items are very collectible, and a vase like this would be worth a few £100s in auction. The reason that I got this is it's been completely broken, it's been completely smashed and restored. So it didn't cost me a great deal of money because it has been completely broken and put back together. But I was keen to have an example of her work just to have as part of my collection. So in this condition, completely broken like it is, it's not worth a great deal. It's probably under £100. If this was in good condition, it's probably more like 400 to 600, something in that sort of region. But Hannah's works are very collectible, and those other artists at that time, Florence Barlow, Frank Butler, George Tinworth, Markmarshall, they are the most collectible of the potters that worked at the Doulton factory in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And they're definitely a factory that is worth having a look into and finding out a bit more about it.